Yes, yes, Sir Hairless here. We are back with Pentatonix, and it's an original of theirs called Bar Humbug, a phrase I think we all associate with good old Ebenezer Scrooge. Would any of you consider yourself a Scrooge? Let me know if we have any self-proclaimed Scrooges out there. It's a new release, and it might be my first Christmas video of 2025. I don't want to say that with complete certainty because the order with which I release my videos is always changing due to copyright and all the other usual things. But this is the first Christmas video I'm filming this year. This did actually appear in my feed right after it was released. But to be an authentic reaction channel, you have to have restraint and willpower not to watch these videos. I did, however, take that screenshot at the time. Make sure to check out my Christmas playlist and my Pentatonix playlist, both linked in the description below. You can find all of my previous Christmas and Pentatonix videos, and there's a lot of overlap because, as we know, Christmas and Pentatonix go hand in hand. This is a live performance from Vivo Studios. I know it's a Pentatonix original, but I'm not too sure what that means, so I gave it a Google. Apparently it was written by Scott, Mark, his husband, and Dave Pierce. Interesting. So let's hop on in.
Met a man named Ebenezer south of Camden High, with calloused hands stood at a slant and no one dared walk by. His heart was hard and sharp as flint, his door was lined with locks, as lonesome as an oyster, and he was greedy as a fox. He was a penny pinching fist, clenching sick and stingy grouch. Don't ask him about Christmas, he'll growl no way, no how. Crooked frown upon the town, so I too strayed away. But one night I got turned around and heard a man behind me say, "The humbug, humbug, the humbug, humbug, the humbug, humbug." And that was all he said. "The humbug, humbug, the humbug, humbug, the humbug." Yeah, yeah.
Key change. Moving up a semitone, we've gone from C minor to now C sharp. Why? Well, Matt, actually down the octave, he's just entered on there. We can hear it's very low. So moving up ever so slightly might be a little bit more comfortable for him to come in down there. Very intrigued to hear his verse though, way down there. Right, this is different. This is different to the usual Pentatonix. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. Maybe later on, depending on how the arrangement turns out. But what we're clearly seeing is this is a, what would we call it? An instrumental swing arrangement. It's not a cappella. In my other Pentatonix videos, I have spoken about this before. I always receive comments from people telling me that because there's only 5 of them, it's impossible that we hear anything else. If you are one of those people, in this case of any case ever with Pentatonix, I think it's safe that we can all agree that there are way more sounds than just the 5 voices. It's an evolution of Pentatonix. If you've been with me and my channel from the start, or even if you've just caught up on all of my Pentatonix videos, you have witnessed my whole Pentatonix experience pretty much, right? Every time I listen to them, I've made a video on it and I've uploaded it. Starting out with Babytonix or old Pentatonix and moving through to the modern Pentatonix, which is these guys. So yeah, we've moved away from a cappella officially in this one at least. So I think we should be thinking about how the voices work with all the instruments that we hear. Right from the start, I like how they start off with an instrument as well, actually. Immediately it just sets the tone. Instrument and voices. Kevin setting the swing rhythms that we're getting, you know, that kind of thing. Scott comes in with his melody.
I met a man named Ebenezer south of Camden High.
And Matt is singing the bass part, and we're all imagining someone playing a double bass there. So they slowly bring in the instruments, thicken the texture a little bit. Let's move forward.
He was greedy as a fox. He was a penny pinching fist, clenching sick and stingy grouch.
Still not the fullest sound. Kirsty and Mitch now come in with their ah. And what do we get on top of that? The piano. Having the piano coming in next, way up there, it's very, very rhythmic. Giving us the syncopations, which means that Kirsty and Mitch, their role is more of a, like a harmonic filler role, but they are also having funky rhythms as well.
Stingy grouch. Don't ask him about Christmas, he'll growl no way, no how.
Really accentuating those offbeats there.
The humbug, humbug, the humbug.
We have what is that, like a cello or something, playing a sustained note there, and that caught my attention because Matt is now singing Humbug instead of a bass part. Well, it is still a bass part, but he has words now at least. Scott's melody was low down. Typically, I'd expect the next thing to come in to be a lot higher up, but we know that Matt is going to take over the melody even lower down in a second. Lovely chromatic movement to implement that key change there, and Kevin has now moved away from percussion. Humbug. That's Kevin's role there. So now, because we have instrumental accompaniment, Kevin is much more free. He is not bound to being the only source of pure rhythmic driving of the music. No, he's more free to fill in the vocals, create a thicker sound, especially when they're singing words that are syncopated, or I imagine maybe some homophony we might get later, like Pentatonix often like to do. And we'll carry on from Matt's verse. We got one chord just before Matt comes in, which really encapsulates the whole feel, the swing, funky feel of this song. A lovely seventh chord. At this moment, I think I have more questions than I do answers. This is not what I was expecting. When I see a new Pentatonix release, I expect a cappella. I am probably way less acquainted with newer Pentatonix than I am with older Pentatonix, so it will naturally maybe be a bit more of a surprise to me. It's not a complaint at all. I think it's a really funky song, and I'm very intrigued to see where it goes. Is it going to grow? Like, what's going to happen? So we'll hear a bit more, and then I'm sure some of you will be wondering my thoughts on this being like a live performance and stuff, so maybe I can touch on that in a bit.
Well, a ghostly figure cautiously leaving concept upside down. He saw a boy so innocent, just like the man that he's now.
As the seconds go, showed him a home, a family full of love. All he heard was friendly laughter. Not a one of them was singing. What could happen when we reap what we sow? All he heard was crickets chirping as he laid to rest, while the town was busy smirking, saying it's for the best. That was all they said.
He said, oh no.
Wait, that's not a top A. That took a second to register. That is a top A, or an A5, which is really the highest note your typical chorister might be expected to sing. Any man singing that, it's almost towards the top of a soprano's register. But Mitch has gone an octave higher. Was not enough. You can't even see it on this little keyboard of mine. That's mental. That is the highest I've ever heard Mitch sing, the highest I've ever heard anyone from Pentatonix sing, I believe. I think it's the first time I've ever heard a whistle note come through in Pentatonix, actually. Has Mitch been practicing his whistling? I feel like a fool. That must have looked so strange. My reaction must have been not what you might have expected, and then a couple of seconds later it kind of clicked. Let's go back just to before Mitch's bit. We'll carry on for a little bit more, and then I'll do our second pause. Sorry, this is really reminding me of the kind of first Christmas Mitch slap I had in God Rest You Merry Gentlemen. Except now he's an octave higher, a little bit more.
He said, oh no. Look what I have done. Is it too late to change my ways? And he snapped back to present day.
Real dissonance by Scott here. I feel like he's about to go on one of his very improvisatory feel runs. So we have our chord here, D. Notice how we've moved. Then was our first key change. And now we're here. And Scott is very obvious dissonance, but it makes it a bit more so, I think, because that note That's kind of the top of your choral tenor's range, and as we know, Scott's a natural baritone who can easily sing as low as basses need to sing as well, so, you know, this isn't low for him. He is absolutely belting it. Let's do a pause here and go over a few of the more interesting or standout things from the last section we've heard. Mitch and Kirsty really high. It's almost like foreshadowing what's to come. I did hear that at the time and I was thinking, that's peculiarly high for them. Sounds a bit type of sound, you know, very forward. Huge contrast to Matt's very low, sultry, smooth solo. Then
Showed him a home, a family for love.
Kirsty comes in, again, just really smooth, powerful chest voice there. Naturally, I'm trying to listen out to the backing parts as well, which is much more difficult because of all of the backing instrumentation. And we have backing voices. When you consider all of that, as well as the professional mixing that's done here, some parts will be purposefully louder than they actually are and vice versa. It's really tough to pick apart every single part on a first listen. We had Mitch with a chromatic line.
Showed him a home, a family for love.
And chromaticism is a big part of this. But again, we can hear multiple voices in the background when Kirsty comes in.
Him a home, a family for love.
That line there, who is singing that? Is it in the backing track or is it Kevin or Scott? It can only be one of those two, but it's so quiet. It really does sound like it's in the backing track. Why I'm focusing on this is because for someone like me who likes to listen to all of the parts and is able to pick them out, it's really interesting just working out exactly how the arrangement is done, exactly how many parts we're hearing, which brings me on to the question I was alluding to earlier about live performance. If you enjoy these videos or find them helpful, please consider supporting me. Patreon has a bunch of exclusive benefits, behind the scenes videos, additional reaction content, Q&A videos, and more. For a one-time donation, you can donate me a hot chocolate at the Buy Me a Coffee link, or become a YouTube member for these groovy emojis and membership badges. And a huge thank you to these lovely people on the screen now. I recently did a video on K-pop Demon Hunters. If you're a K-pop Demon Hunters fan and have missed my videos on them, go and check them out. And there's a really popular song, Golden, and there was a live performance of it. I did a video on that. I cannot tell you how many comments I've received from people saying that there is some tuning applied and therefore it doesn't count as a live performance. And I'm not going to get into that because that's a different video and a different issue. But I just think, yes, it is still a live performance. Obviously, they're there performing live. If they were lip syncing, then there could be some debate. Pentatonix here, this is 100% a live performance. I don't think anyone would or should be doubting it. But even on Kiss from a Rose that I did, which was a similar setup with additional parts that we're hearing in the background, there were quite a few comments of people either asking me or just outright telling me that no, it's not live. From what I can hear and see right now, them singing here is definitely live. The question about it being a purely live, as in 5-part, 5-voice performance, yeah, that's obviously not the case. But their singing very much is live. Where there could be some contention comes through the additional parts we're hearing in the background. There are parts here, I'm not going to pick them all out, where we're hearing additional voices in the background and then someone will come in and start singing the same part or the same note or a different note. And then it is a little bit like, oh, well, which part is live and which part is pre-recorded? I don't really care. We can hear them and see them singing the parts that they are singing. If we really listen out for it, it's quite obvious. So I think of this as a live performance with a very full swing backing track. And you do need a full backing track to create a musical product or piece like this is. It's a very, very full sound. Okay, the next bit, it was a tiny bit almost spooky in a way.
There goes with a black cloak. He showed him what could happen when we reap what we sow.
Chromaticism falling down. My first instinct was that Mitch is singing the top part, falling chromatically. But listening again, I think it's Kirsty.
All he heard was crickets chirping as he lay to rest while the town was busy smirking, saying it's for the best.
Which makes sense there because her part perfectly continues into bit at the end of the phrase. That last bit of the phrase though, if I heard that with my eyes closed,
The rest while the town was busy smirking, saying it's for the best.
that sounds like Mitch. So have a listen. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm pretty sure that that is the case. And I just think it's a great testament. Something that I've said in so many Pentatonix videos over the couple of years I've had this channel. Mitch and Kirsty, especially at certain times like this, are essentially interchangeable. They could be the other person, which is such a useful thing, almost like an asset when it comes to traditionally a cappella singing or just group singing like this. Very, very cool. So here's a case where typically in the older days, we would have had like Avi and Kevin creating these sounds like dum, dum, you know, working together, singing at the exact same moment. Kevin doing percussion, Avi singing, or Matt as well. We've seen Matt and Kevin doing it as well. We're getting these sounds in the background, but Kevin and Matt are not producing them live. We can see Matt singing Bah Humbug. Kevin, it looks like, is making these sounds. So I'm kind of just sat here wondering, is that partly Kevin live that is being really raised in volume, or is it a pre-recorded thing, or is it even human voices? It could be instruments. One of the really interesting things about moving away from a cappella and having an instrumental accompaniment that we cannot see is how many questions it can raise and how we will doubt what we're hearing, and we can never really be certain. I know some people won't like that. They want to just be able to see everything and know for sure. I personally quite like the added intrigue that comes with not knowing for sure. Then we got this bit. I don't really know what's going to happen. I just cannot expect. It's quite a hectic arrangement. There really is a lot going on and the sound is just so full. So let's finish it up, I guess. How long's left? From where we got to, about a minute and a half left.
Well, it's Christmas morning. It's a brand new day today. I'm singing about Humbug. From here on out, I'm spreading love. You see it, I'm done. Singing about Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Rumbling about Humbug. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. No more grumbling. No more grumbling. Yeah. No more. Merry Christmas.
Well, that was certainly not what I was expecting. Such a big sound at the end there. It was like a full gospel choir, essentially. So much freedom with everything. Let me find a moment. And again, it's to do with Matt and the bass part. I guess I'm just so conditioned when seeing Pentatonix and hearing a bass part that sounds like a walking bass, thinking it's Matt or Avi. I have said, I think before in some of my videos, that Matt's voice type to me just sounds almost like an electric bass or something, you know? It's a very instrumental type of sound.
Well, it's Christmas morning.
So we had dum ba dum dum, and then it goes down, and then the bass is moving up dum 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 down the octave.
It's a brand new day today. I'm done singing about Humbug.
But we can see he's singing Bah Humbug. So at some point off camera, he has switched from going the dum dum dums into singing words. But we're still hearing that bass part. Is it a voice? Is it an instrument? So moving away from strictly a cappella, especially strictly 5-part a cappella, and an arrangement like this, I think really allows for a lot of fluidity and freedom and flexibility in the singers. They can improvise here. We've got loads of backing voices. So even if these guys didn't sing, there'd still be a full sound. Scott is doing a Scottism, you know, just going on all of these runs. And so is everyone else. They're having a great time at the end. Just such a big, big sound. They can have their own line. They can sing homophonically with everyone to add a bit more power to the words that are being sung at that particular moment. Definitely a new type of sound for Pentatonix, at least for me, and a really fun arrangement all round. If that doesn't start off your Christmas season this December in a good way, then I don't know what will. Really, really interesting. I hope nothing I said was too controversial. Let me know your thoughts on anything below in the comments. Comments really help with the algorithm. Of course, if you don't want to write any words, then emojis work too. Let's go for a Christmas tree because 'tis the season. Thank you as always for watching. We'd really appreciate a like. I'm sure there'll be more Pentatonix to come this Christmas season, and I will see you in the next one.